guys. It's lesson time. I don't know why I always feel like bad when I have to say that. Maybe because it reminds me of school. But sometimes school is necessary. If you didn't go to school, I don't know if we could all read or not. But anyway, I have two things to teach. One of them I may not teach, but I'm not sure. But we'll see. First of all, we'll see if it comes out tonight anyway. Secondly, I got mixed reviews about whether I should share it or not, because I'm not sure I should, but then I got some people say that I should share it, some people say just play it. I'm not sure, but then there's a fan called me and told me that he liked the thing I did about the Pat Martino, John Mehegan thing about the diminished seventh turning into a dominant seventh or a minor 7 flat 5 with a sharper note or flatter note in it. And he said I didn't cover it very well, which is true. But so I'm here to cover that at least, and maybe the augmented thing, because if you get an augmented triad and sharpen note, you get well, if you sharpen note, you get a minor triad. If you flatten note, you get a major triad. So, and in the dominant seventh chord, if you flatten note, you get in the diminished seventh chord, if you flatten note, you get a dominant seventh chord. If you sharpen note, you get a minor 7 flat 5 chord. And I said that and even played it, but I didn't really explain it. So I'm going to do that at least. And then the other thing was I had a breakthrough about music theory during the middle of karaoke. In fact, the first two songs of karaoke I did, I kind of was not really there. I was out of it a little bit because I had music theory in my brain. But for Wild Side, the third song, I kicked that out of my head and just did the song. But I'm not sure to share that with you guys or if I should just play it. I mean, a lot of the great, I'm not saying I'm great, but like Jimi Hendrix didn't talk much about his music. He just played it. And Alan Holdsworth, he didn't talk and say what he was doing. He just did it. So I'm not sure I should take that approach, or if I should just be totally honest and tell you guys everything. And I asked that I asked that, and the comments were mixed. So somebody said just play it. Somebody said share it with us. So I'm not sure yet. And it may even come out right now, but it may not. I don't know. We'll see. So first, let's do the diminished seventh and augmented thing, because that is important, and I didn't really cover it. He's right. I'm glad he called me on that. Literally called me, but called me on the fact that I had to share it. I'm going to use some clean tone here because you can hear the notes better. I'm not saying I like the sound of it better, but anyway. Okay, now I had combined Pat Martino's theory with John Mehegan's theory, and I came up with my own little combination, but at least I documented my sources. Pat Martino basically said two things about there's a diminished seventh triad, which is a symmetrical seventh chord because it's got minor, 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 or chord-wise. It's 4 minor sevenths on top of each other. When you say 3, and the fourth one is implied because that's the interval of the left, but you could also be complete and say it's 4 minor thirds, because 4 minor thirds divides an octave. An octave is 12 semitones, a minor third is 3 semitones, and so 3 times 4 is 12. So 4 minor thirds make an octave. But anyway, there's 4 notes in a dominant seventh chord. I'm going to play it in C here, or it could be any of the roots. Any of the notes in the chord can be a root because it's symmetrical. Because it's a symmetrical shape. But I'll call it C diminished seventh for this right this second. The C to B, suddenly I get a B dominant seventh. But what's funny about, and first of all, I'll say that can be on any fret. You could be, it's C sharp, diminished seventh, then flat to C sharp, C dominant seventh. And then a C diminished seventh, flat to D, you get C sharp, dominant seventh. See that? Cool. First of all, that's cool. And you can make a little musical thing out of it. You can go. That wasn't the greatest, but it's not. It's a cool sound. I mean, so what if it's not? It's still a cool little sound, and it can sound good even with distortion. I like it. still music. All music can be played with electric guitar and distortion, which I think can convert almost anything into rock and roll, heavy metal if you just play it in the right way or whatever. So that's a cool thing. But I left out one part because I'm separating this. The other part, the other way of looking at that is slightly different. You have a C diminished seventh to start. And notice I only flatted the C to B to get the B dominant seventh. But who's to say you can't flat one of the other 4 notes? Any note there can be flatted, and it gives a different inversion or different voicing depending on which note you pick. Watch this if you want to. So if I flat the C to B, I get a B. Flat the F sharp to an F, I get F dominant seventh. That's a different voicing than this. They're both dominant seventh chords, but depending on which note I flat, I get a different inversion or a different voicing of the chord. So you could do this. You could go. Did I do that right? Let me try it again. So far that may not sound great, but C diminished seventh, flat the C to B, B dominant seventh, and back to the C diminished seventh, and then flat the F sharp to F. But that's only 2 of the possible notes that you can flat because there's 4 notes in it. It really gets complicated, really. You can flat one of the other 2 notes can also be flattened for even. There are 4 inversions or positions or voicings of a dominant seventh chord because there's 4 notes in it. So that was 2 of the 4. Now I'm going to take back to C. I'm going to flat the A to an A flat. I'm going to get this. Yep. That's also now makes an A flat dominant seventh chord. You can tell because that's an A major. You have a flat 7, a full step below the root. So far I have 3 different inversions of a dominant seventh chord just from flatting each 3 of the 4 notes in a diminished seventh arpeggio or chord. So here's the C diminished seventh, flat the C to B, B dominant seventh, C diminished seventh, F sharp to F, F dominant seventh, back to C diminished seventh, flat the A to A flat, C flat, dominant seventh. I have one more choice, back to C diminished seventh. I can flat the D sharp to a D and get a D dominant seventh. Sure enough, because that's a D major. I'm just telling you the theory. I'm sorry if it's easy or hard, whatever. C diminished seventh, flat the C to B, B dominant seventh, back to C diminished seventh. The F sharp to F is F dominant seventh, back to C diminished seventh, flat the A to A flat is A flat dominant seventh, back to C diminished seventh, flat the D sharp to D is D dominant seventh. So then this C can be on any of the positions, all up and down the neck on any fret could start that. So you have. I'm gonna now. Let's just be patient with me here. There's only 3 different diminished seventh arpeggios because there's 4 notes and they're symmetrical, and so 4 times 3 is 12. So 3 diminished seventh arpeggios. If you try to play a 4th one, it's just an inversion of the first one. Let's just see if that's true. A diminished seventh. I have A sharp diminished seventh, a fret higher. I have B diminished seventh, a fret above that. If I go to C diminished seventh, it's just an inversion of A diminished seventh because they all have the same notes. Because A diminished seventh and C diminished seventh have the same notes, just different positions, but the same notes there. Or E flat diminished seventh, the same. F sharp diminished seventh, same. A diminished seventh, same. So there's only 3 different diminished seventh chords or arpeggios, but because each of here it goes. So there's only 3. Let's take A sharp. Let's take 3 of these. Let's take A diminished seventh, A sharp diminished seventh, and B diminished seventh. Okay, so since that covers all 12 notes, think of this. Each of these three shapes has 4 notes in it, and each of those 4 notes can be flatted to make a different dominant 7th chord. So since the first one is A diminished 7th can become 4 dominant 7th chords. That's 4 of the 12 dominant 7th chords right there. Then since A sharp diminished 7th can also flat any of those 4 notes, that gives you 4 more dominant 7th chords. So that makes 8 so far. If I go to B diminished 7th, each of those can be flatted to make 4 more dominant 7th chords, and then 4, 4, and 4 make 12, or all the possible dominant 7th chords in an octave. Did you get that? Because there's each shape, diminished 7th, can be 4 different dominant 7th chords depending on which note you flat. But since there's 3, but that's 4 on A. Diminished 7th becomes any of the 4 that you can dominant 7th chords that come from flattening any one of those 4 notes. Then same with A sharp. A sharp diminished 7th becomes any one of the 4 dominant 7th chords that come from flattening any one of those 4 notes. So that makes 8. And then finally B diminished 7th becomes any of the 4 dominant 7th chords that come from flatting any of those 4 notes in the B diminished 7th arpeggio, which makes 8, which makes 12, because now you have 4, 4, and 4. All 12 dominant 7th chords can come just from flattening any of the notes in A diminished 7th, A sharp diminished 7th, or B diminished 7th. So the math works out because there's 3 diminished 7th triads. Sorry, 7th chords. There's 3 diminished 7th chords in music, in 12-note music. But each of those diminished 7th chords has 4 possible inversions of a dominant 7th chord, depending on which of the 4 notes of the chord you flat. But then since there's 3 of the chords to flatten one of the notes to get 4 dominant 7th chords in each position, then between the 3 of them and the 4 notes in them, you get all 12 dominant 7th chords in 12-tone music. I mean, that's all I can say about that. They're going to do the triads now, the augmented thing. But this is the harder one because 4 notes harder than 3, at least different. Do you want to go through all that? I think you understand because I started with C. How you can get 4. I mean, you know. I stumbled on the last one. Let's do it again. That shows that there's 4 dominant 7th chords from that one C diminished 7th shape. But since there's another one at C sharp, another one at D, that gives you 4, 4, and 4 make 12, all 12 dominant 7th chords in Western music. If you try to go to E flat, that's the same notes as C. You get the same E flat diminished 7th, the same notes as C diminished 7th. You're just repeating yourself after that. Is that all right? You guys get that? If you're not, just play it over again, or that's all I can say. And then now the other theory, and the way that combines with John Mehegan, I'm glad I remembered that part. Before I do the triads, because I like the 7th, but the 7th is really cool. I don't know what the triads. It's not as well. It's cool too. John Mehegan said you basically play a chromatic scale in jazz. Don't worry about you really don't play. Funny about music thing. There's major scales and all that, but you don't always play just those notes in real music. I mean, jazz can be based on a major scale. Well, first of all, the scale can change all over the place to different keys. And within that, and not only that, within each major scale, you can play all the other notes are good too. You can go. I'm not the greatest at this, but here goes. It's a sliding scale. You can play all, and even Mozart, one of my favorite. I'm playing this lick a lot. That's a major scale lick, but he doesn't just play notes in the main in if that lick is an E, he doesn't just play the notes in E major scale. He plays E, F sharp, E, D sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp. Then he goes to A, G sharp, then G natural. That's actually a minor third. That may not be in the E major scale, but it sounds good. That sounds cool, right? Different than that would be if it was strictly major scale, but no. Then he goes to the B. Then he goes. No, he starts on C sharp, B, A sharp. A sharp isn't in either. So that's another note that's not in E major scale. And then play them together. I like that. That's different than it would be if it were diatonic. Totally, it would be boring. But then the next note is diatonic. Lick, I should say, next part. And that's just one lick from Mozart that already has, in whatever key you're in, it has two notes in the lick that aren't in the major scale of the major key it's supposedly in. So music's a sliding scale, and I like that sound. There's a chromatic scale in music. It's just up to your taste how you use it. But the chord-wise, he said there's 12 possible roots of chords, but there are 5 4-note chords, which are 7th chords, or because jazz only plays 4-note chords or more than 4-note chords usually, not usually triads. So of the 4-note chords, which are called 7th chords, because 1, 3, 5, 7 is 4 notes. There's 5 different types, according to John Mehegan. The first 3 come from what I just explained. There's a diminished 7th chord on 12 roots, but in this case, in the diminished 7th case, you actually repeat some of the inversions. Some of the other keys are just inversions of it. But let's just say, for sake of argument, you can play a diminished 7th on any of the 12 notes. So you get 12 diminished 7th chords. Then you get 12 dominant 7th chords by flattening any note of the diminished 7th triad, arpeggio or chord. And then what I didn't show, but is the same. But what I didn't show just now though, if you sharpen any of the 4 notes in a diminished 7th chord, you get a minor 7 flat 5 chord. I didn't show that. I showed the dominant 7th case of flattening one note. But just get the gist of it. It's the same thing with the minor 7 flat 5, except you sharpen each of the notes in a diminished 7th chord. And then since there's 4 notes in a diminished 7th chord, sharpening any one of the 4 gives 4 different minor 7 flat 5 chords. And then when you go to the next diminished 7th chord, that gives you 4 more minor 7 flat 5 chords, depending on which note you sharpen in it, in each of the in the arpeggio. In the next diminished 7th arpeggio gives you 4 more minor 7 flat 5 chords, depending on which note you sharpen within that arpeggio, and then the 4, 4, and 4 make 12 possible minor 7 flat 5 chords. And that's what John Mehegan said. He said there was 5 chords that are 4 notes or 4-note chords in 12-tone music per root. So first there's a diminished 7th, then there's a dominant 7th, there's a minor 7 flat 5, then that makes 3, and the 3 of those come from just what I explained from Pat Martino. Diminished 7th is one of them, dominant 7th is another one, minor 7 flat 5 is another one. So the one diminished 7th chord gives you 3 different 7th chords possible, depending on if you take the original diminished 7th chord, gives you a diminished 7th. Flat a note in that, you get a dominant 7th. Sharp a note, you get a minor 7 flat 5. So that's 3 that's 3 7th chords on any root. There's only 2 others that are really used or in music, basically, and that's the minor 7th, which put on C, minor 7th chord, and major 7th chord. Makes 5. You got the diminished 7th, dominant 7th, minor 7 flat 5, then the major 7th and the minor 7th make the 5 chords, 7th chords on each root of 12 notes in music, and since there's 12 notes, the number of chords you have is 5 times 12, which is 60, so you have a 60 chord system. You have 60 chords total played over a chromatic line, or a chromatic line played over 60 total chords, because 12 times 5 is 60, and then there's five different seventh chords, and there's 12 different notes that could be started on or rooted on, so that makes 12 times 5 is 60 different arpeggios, chords in Western, in jazz. So that's where I combine the two, Pat Martino and John Mehegan. And before I go on to the triads, I'm almost done here. Before I go into the triads, I have to at least try one example of sharpening one of the four notes of a diminished seventh chord to get a minor 7/5, because I didn't even show that, but the principle is the same. Say I have C diminished seventh arpeggio or chord. If I sharpen the C to C sharp, I get that, and that is a. Let me figure it out here. Let's see. I like the suspense myself. That would be, I'm having fun here anyway. That would be a D sharp minor 7 flat 5, because this is D sharp. Let me make sure that's right. Let me make sure that's right. I sharpened one of the notes. Okay, yes I did. Make sure I said that right. Wait, let me see. This is killing me. Yeah, it is D sharp, D sharp, D sharp, minor 7 flat 5. I believe that's true, because this is D sharp. This would be the minor third, because right here. This would be the. I did it right. Yeah, D sharp minor 7 flat 5, because D sharp minor 7 would be seventh would be just that. And then you have this one makes it a flat 5. There's the flat 5 in there. Back to the C, diminished seventh. I'm going to sharpen the F sharp to G, and now I get this. I'm having fun here anyway. Weird chord sounds. And that would be, let's see. I think that would be A. That would be A minor 7 flat 5. Yeah, because here's the A, minor 7th here. Minor third here, flat 5 here. A, minor 7 flat 5. So I started with C, diminished seventh, sharp the C sharp, sharp the C to C sharp, gives D sharp, minor 7 flat 5. Back to the C, diminished seventh, sharp the F sharp to G, gives you an A, minor 7 flat 5. Back to the C, now that's 2 minor 7 flat 5s so far. Now back to C, diminished seventh. I'm going to flat the A, I'm going to sharp the A to A sharp. And that gives C minor 7 flat 5. That's interesting. C minor 7 flat 5. Okay, that's a third minor 7 flat 5 possible. Back to C diminished seventh. I'm gonna sharp the D sharp to E, and that gives this. And that is a F sharp minor 7 flat 5. So you can sharp any one of the notes in a diminished seventh chord to get a minor 7 flat 5 chord, or you can flat any of the notes in a diminished seventh chord to get a dominant seventh chord. I find dominant seventh chords more useful and knowable and sound better, but it's all things are possible in music. I mean, who's to say a minor 7 flat 5 couldn't be the new thing? I mean, let's see what it sounds like. C diminished seventh could become. That was D sharp minor 7 flat 5. Okay, back to the C diminished seventh. This one, I went from A sharp to G. That made a A minor 7 flat 5. A minor 7 flat 5. Back to the C diminished seventh. Sharp the A to A sharp gave a C minor 7 flat 5. Back to the C major diminished seventh. Sharp the D sharp to E gave a sharp minor 7 flat 5. So, and you have 12 minor 7 flat 5s in Western music, because there's 12 notes, and each of the 4 notes of a diminished seventh chord can be sharp to make 4 minor 7 flat 5 chords, but there's 3 diminished 7th chords in music, so there's 4 plus 4 plus 4, 4 times 3 minor 7 flat 5 chords that come from those 3 diminished 7th chords, depending on which of the 4 notes in each of those chords you sharpen. Sorry, and this is what it is. So, and let's play around, just for fun, let's play some minor. Well, okay, I didn't really play dominant 7th. People, I mean, dominant 7th chords are common. We know it from blues and jazz and even rock. You know. But minor 7 flat 5s could be cool too. Because those don't get played, I'm going to play a couple just for a second. Maybe as dominant 7th chords and not as useful, but who am I to say that isn't beautiful and useful? I don't know. Arpeggio-wise would be that's minor 7 flat 5. This is dominant 7th. So they're really similar chords, actually. Arpeggios, actually. Minor 7 flat 5. They both sound good. So that gives you the 5 7th chords per root in jazz. Diminished 7th chord, dominant 7th chord, minor 7 flat 5, and then minor 7th chord, and then major 7th chord, which are both diatonic 7th chords. That's what my fan that called wanted me to do that, and I promised him I would do it, and I'm doing it here. And I didn't say I would do the augmented thing, and I may not, because this has been a long video. It's almost 30 minutes long, I think. Yeah, and I haven't even talked about the augmented yet. That's for triads. I don't know if I should. Just leave it at this for this. Maybe. Yeah, this has been a good lesson. It's half an hour lessons are like, after that, it's like, oof. So I love you guys. Peace, rock and roll. There's also that Martino also mentioned in his theory that an augmented triad, because this is, I don't want to go in the deep end here, but augmented triad, any note in that can be flatted to make a major triad. So if I start with let's start with G, no, that wouldn't be, G augmented. If I flatten the G to F sharp, I get F sharp major. Remember that? So G augmented to F sharp major. So by flattening the G in the augmented triad. Now let's go back to the G augmented. Flat the B to A sharp. That is a D sharp major triad. So G augmented, flatten the B to A sharp, is D sharp major. And back to the G augmented, flat the D sharp to D, G major. So there's that, and there's 4 augmented triads in Western music, because there's 3 notes in each augmented triad, and there's 3 times 4 is 12, and if you go try to make a 5th one, you get an inversion of the first. So, and then the B augmented would be the same chord as G augmented. So you can't get a 5th one. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And each of those 4 has 3 notes that each be flattened to give a major triad. So you got 3 major triads per augmented triad possible, and since there's 4 augmented triads, you have 3 major triads times 4, which is 12 major triads, and there's 12 major triads in Western music. That was flattening any note of an augmented triad. And if you sharpen any note of an augmented triad, you get a minor triad, and then there's 12 of those. Same idea. G augmented, sharp to G, you get G sharp minor. Back to G augmented, sharp to B to C, you get, that would be C minor. Okay? Then back to G augmented, sharp, the D sharp to E. That's 3 minor triads that came from 1 augmented triad. There's 4 augmented triads, so there's 3 times 4. There's 3 times 4 minor triads that can be made from this, and then that makes 12 minor triads, and there's 12 minor triads in Western music. So, and then that can be used, but it's not that one is great. But people don't. There's a couple people don't really play augmented triads that much. They're not really that with it. But I love Alan Holdsworth doing that. I love how Alan Holdsworth loves augmented triads, and I love that about that. He makes augmented triads like a thing because he was so good at that. But everybody else doesn't really use them much. But maybe we're all wrong and he's right. But anyway. But each of those, any augmented triad with a flatted, can be flattened or sharpened to give a major or minor triad. But most people know major and minor triads anyway, and easier. They already know them. Plus, they're more familiar, they're more easy to get access to. So you don't really. Most people don't need to use the augmented triad method to get to major and minor triads. They just know the major and minor triads. Whereas with the dominant 7th and half diminished, or with the dominant 7th arpeggios and the minor 7 flat 5 arpeggios, the diminished 7th thing is useful because not everybody has their heads around those, the dominant 7th and the minor 7th flat 5, as well as they know minor and major triads. So the diminished thing is probably more useful than the augmented thing, but they both exist. Love you guys. Peace, rock, and have a great night.